Good morning, everybody. Mike Naso here from IPR365.com with the latest on Hurricane Irene. Irene made landfall near Cape Lookout just a few hours ago as a Category 1 storm, but the pressure is still very low, and the pressure is actually a little bit lower than Floyd and getting pretty close to where Fran was. As a matter of fact, I think it's even lower than Fran, and those were Category 2 and 3 hurricanes, but pressure takes a while to rise, even if the winds do come down a good bit. You can see as of 11 a.m. it was at 35.2 north, 76.4 west, winds still 85 miles an hour, gusting to 105. We've had strong wind gusts. Cape Hatteras just reported a wind gust well into hurricane force. It's moving north-northeast now at about 13 to 14 miles an hour, 952 millibars, and it should continue to move off the coast as a hurricane later tonight, and then tomorrow morning be making landfall somewhere in either New Jersey or Long Island, New York, as a hurricane again, perhaps a strong tropical storm, not a whole lot of difference between that, and then continue to move into New Hampshire by tomorrow night, and then by Monday night be way up and out of the picture, and we won't have to deal with it anymore. I did want to note, of course, we have the hurricane warnings up for most of North Carolina all the way up to areas of Massachusetts, and look at these tropical storm watches all the way into Maine. You don't see that too often, but we see it now with Irene because you can see the wind field with this hurricane force winds are impacting a large portion of eastern North Carolina. You have the onshore flow of the storm surge pushing over those barrier islands, and we now have tropical storm winds heading closer and closer towards the Maryland region, and that will be spreading into Delaware, New Jersey, and further into Virginia as the day wears on, because Irene, of course, is a very significant hurricane. Now you can see the visible satellite as the sun came up. The storm really fell apart overnight. Keep in mind, it was only about 36 hours ago that the pressure was dropping, and it was a Category 3, and there was fears that whether it did or not, it could get close to Category 4 or stay a 3 until landfall. The fact that it weakened to a Category 1 as it came on shore and before it came on shore was very, very good news for areas of North Carolina and further north. There's a big difference between getting hit by a Category 3 and having it weaken slowly up the coast and getting hit by a Category 1, but nonetheless, the energy Irene is pushing into the coastline is going to cause a lot of problems. You can see that beautiful visible as the system spirals around there over eastern North Carolina. I did want to note the radars here. This is the radar out of Morehead City, and you can see a continued battering in that onshore flow here over the Outer Banks. That is likely creating storm surges. We've had those reports. Further up in Richmond, you're starting to see the eye wall come into view here as the rain shield now spreads well up into Baltimore, and it's only going to get worse. And if we head even further up towards Dover, Delaware, you can see Atlantic City, you're getting pounded. You don't have all that much of the onshore flow yet, but as the system pulls on off here towards the north and northeast, that flow will come onshore and you can have a significant surge. Any little area here where you're dealing with these little inlets and cuts, Long Island, Manhattan, anywhere up in here you can have significant storm surges, even if Irene somehow weakened to a tropical storm. But you can see the eye coming into the long-range radar here of Dover, Delaware, near Cape Hatteras, Dare County, heading up towards Elizabeth City and Newport News. A very dangerous situation. Here's another look at it on the IR, and you can clearly see the system weakened overnight. There's a big gap here, but look at the cloud shield reaching all the way into Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, up into Maine already, and this system's going to continue to pull up. So if you're up further north and you haven't continued your preparations, prepare for power outages at the very least. Now, why did Irene weaken? Well, one, waters are getting cooler. Two, wind shear was impacting it. And three, note the high pressure over the Gulf of Mexico. This brown air here, this is very dry air, and you have that clockwise flow around the high pressure down here, the ridging, and clearly some of that entrained into the circulation of Irene, but it has not dried up yet quite as much as, say, Floyd did when he pulled north in September of '99. Seems like yesterday for those who tracked it, but remember how moist Floyd was down here, and it was almost a Category 5, and it weakened to a 2 and was very, very dry as it moved up. but nonetheless created devastating flooding. But from the perspective of what Floyd had been, it was a lot less large and wet a system than it could have been even 48 hours before. Irene doesn't seem to have that problem, as that western side where you can see this dry air seems to be on the rebound a bit. So if anything, that's only going to prolong the rain event for areas of Virginia, Maryland, eastern North Carolina. And you can see it's still holding on to some decent organization despite only being a Category 1 hurricane. But clearly, Irene pushing into North Carolina has already made landfall near Cape Lookout. I should note, Irene is the first hurricane of any intensity to make landfall in the United States since September of 2008, when Hurricane Ike made landfall in Texas. So for those of you who may be more fair weather hurricane fans, no pun intended, where you only kind of notice if it's a big event, it may seem like they hit very often, but it's actually been one of the longest stretches without a hurricane we've ever seen until now. And it's only August 27th. We still have a good 2 weeks before the peak of the season, let alone after that. So we'll see what else hurricane season 2011 has in store. I have a feeling there's still more on the way. But for now, that's the latest on Hurricane Irene. Stay tuned and listen to your local officials to see what impacts Irene may leave for you. I'm Mike Naso from IPR. I will see you next time.